Tip of the day number 10. Honor caretakers and healthcare workers supporting people affected with COVID-19 in your community. Acknowledge the role they play to save lives and keep your loved ones safe. Need help and support? Please contact us at the hotline 311, psychosocial support at 722-6575 or 518-4157. Brought to you by PAHO, the OACS Commission, and UNICEF.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the hosts, co-hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining UTV Channel 124 on Flow. Thank you for joining us UTV 124 on Facebook. Of course, to all the new watchers who are coming on YouTube, thank you very much for locking in, as well as those locked in on radio, that being Hits Radio, our radio station partners. That's 92.1 in the north, 91.1 in the south, and of course Twitch and Instagram. Thank you for following as well. This is the Revolution. It is Wednesday, the 24th of March 2021, and remember, we do shout outs tomorrow, so by all means send me your shout outs. Send them to 758-519-1818. That's my number, 519-1818. Send me the name of the person you want to send the greeting to, what the greeting is. Don't send a voice note. Script it out, write it out, type it out, text it out, and whatever the person's who it's coming from, what area they're from, whether they're here or abroad, and I'll do my best to deal with shout outs tomorrow. If there's a nickname, spell it phonetically, spell it how you'd like it to be pronounced. Now, we have a lot to digest today, but I start where I left off, and I've been trying to preach this refrain for a while. It is not about facts as much as it is about psychology. You see, what has happened in today's world, especially with the advent of online media, is that people are now trying to gauge what will have a psychological impact beyond what will have a factual impact on you. Because they realize that psychology in many ways trumps reason. So even when you heard about things like newfangled concepts, things like emotional intelligence, almost sounds like an oxymoron, like bittersweet. It sounds like a contradiction, because emotionalism and logic seem to always be at loggerheads with one another. So when somebody tells you they're making an emotional decision or an emotional reaction, it almost infers, or the connotation is, that it's not knowledge-based or factual, but it's still understandable. Now, as we come into the election season, there's going to be legitimate fodder, there's going to be legitimate issues, and there's going to be bullshit, there's going to be lies, there's going to be stuff that's just made up. I was speaking to somebody who is actually now not a United Workers' Party supporter, not a Labour Party supporter, but they spoke about how they literally used to sit in a group of 5 of them, and they just used to literally think of what they could make up. And like I've said before, they've always known this. Good lies have a certain amount of truth mixed into them. Or they take narratives that are already comfortable for most. So, for example, Stephen King has an affable persona. So if somebody told you Stephen King was punching a zombie by the side of the road, you wouldn't believe it, because it doesn't fit into the perception. But you see, we also have to come to terms with certain things now. For example, we're always told to trust our instincts. I tell you that as well. But you see, there are psychologists out there and manipulators, especially in the media, who know how to use your instincts against you, how to use your own biases against you and your cognitive dissonance against you. So it's important that with your instincts also comes discipline. And you have to be willing to listen to all sides, look for your facts, whether it's about a vaccine, it's about crime, it's about this, that, and the other. Reason these things out and constantly be updating. Just like if you get a new phone or you upgrade your computer, it's like that now. That's what we have to do. So we're all going to have to accept that we are a hoped for work in progress. Now I'm going to walk you through, right, my psychological biases and cognitive dissonance and everything. And then I'll bring you to where I am at in terms of a conclusion. Just so that you see how many ups and downs. It's like watching a cricket game, and West Indies is playing not so bad, not so good, but the drama is high. So where do we start? Well, why not here?
When they came in, they negotiated with the government, the Ministry of Finance, not the Ministry of Communications and Works.
That's A&M.
Yeah. I was the Minister of Finance and I was the one who negotiated. So that negotiation did not begin at my ministry.
There is some talk of your sister's name being mentioned as part of the contract to build the Bocage Road.
I didn't know that she was a witness to the signing of the agreement. I did not know that my sister signed as a witness to the contract. Now, if I was the one involved in the process, if you ask me if it was inappropriate, I would say definitely it was. But none of these transactions involved me. I had to compile a list based on the contracts that were in the ministry. Pretend as if the projects had not been done and submit it to the Taiwanese for approval.
We won the elections in December 2006. In January 2007, a company A&M was born. And when you realize I was against it, what did you do? You offered me $1 million, didn't you, Guy Joseph? Did you not? For me to support it. And what did I do? You know what I did? I went to report it to Stephenson King. And when I got to the Prime Minister, he said to me, Guy Joseph offered you $1 million. Guy is a madman. He offered me $5 million. Yes, Guy, your crimes against the state. You know, you remind me of Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines. What did he do? He took the whole national budget and ran away. Yes. You know, Stephenson King indicated to me, and I've said so at meetings, I've said so on TV before, and that has been confirmed over and over, not making this up, you know. But I wonder what you're offering Alan now. But with hindsight at my disposal, Guy Joseph, I should not have only reported that matter to Stephenson King. I should have reported it to the police for criminal investigations.
Now, irrespective of your cognitive biases, whether you are a Guy Joseph fan or a detractor, or Richard Frederick fan or a detractor, you have to discipline yourself to ask a couple of questions. Richard Frederick continued to work with Guy Joseph. Guy Joseph never sued Richard Frederick after Richard Frederick made those claims. Stephenson King did not, he said Guy Joseph is a madman if we go by that account, but Stephenson King continues to work with Guy Joseph, kept him as a minister, and Stephenson King himself could have also reported the incident or told Richard Frederick instead of Richard Frederick telling him. All of these things are things you just have to keep on a balanced scale and takes a lot of discipline. But in all of that, the one thing that we know that tips the scale is Guy Joseph telling you openly that he falsified state documents. And you see, even if we, the people, cannot hold him to account, the government of the Prime Minister and his cabinet should hold him to account. So, for example, when Kenny Anthony found out about Walter Francois not having a doctorate, right, he relieved him of his cabinet position because you serve at the pleasure of the Prime Minister. But if we are depending on Chasney to police Guy Joseph, that makes no sense, because Guy Joseph is Chasney's boss. Guy Joseph owns Chasney, and they do what they do together. Now, that said, along comes the airport scandal with Antonio Asenza.
So when we talk about that we want to be an inquiry, the point that the member from from Castries South makes reference to, I never made any comments about an inquiry into phone bills. What I made an inquiry into was, how is it that Bob Lindquist was appointed and that I came in as the Minister of Finance and nobody reported it to me?
That's not true.
Not one person. Not one person. I never made any comments about an inquiry into phone bills. I never made any comments about an inquiry. I never made any comments about an inquiry. I never made any comments about an inquiry.
The Minister for Economic Development, Guy Joseph, has been responding to reports that he has been implicated in an investigation into alleged corruption associated with the Hiranora International Airport redevelopment project. Prime Minister Alan Chasney says he has yet to see any evidence indicating such. However, a probe will be launched into the matter.
Well, we have actually put together a small team to conduct an internal investigation, because you could imagine we saw some of the documents that were in circulation. None of those documents are in government files. So at this point I stand here and I cannot even confirm to you the authenticity of those documents. We know that Mr. Lindquist, as we have reported previously, we found out Mr. Lindquist was hired. We found out Mr. Lindquist has been paid over $1 million US. We've also found out that there are processes in government that did not follow the right processes. In fact, they didn't even have the contracts. So as I said, we've put together a small team that will be carrying out an investigation to find out how all this happened, what the status of the situation is.
Prime Minister Chasney says that as soon as this information is made available to him, it will be public information. However, his ministers will continue work as usual, as the business of the country remains of paramount importance. The reports allege that during the project bidding process, there was heightened telephone activity between Guy Joseph, the then Minister of Communications and Works, Sean Matthew, then SLASPA General Manager, and Antonio Asenza, the head of construction firm Asphalt and Mining Limited. The project was eventually awarded to Asphalt and Mining, but had to be scrapped due to financial constraints.
Osling Crosby. Florida court filings reveal questionable relationship between businessmen and 3 St. Lucian government officials. This is the big story we are tracking this hour on the AM edition of Newsbreak for Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. Now for the details. Court filings in the United States just made public is suggesting a tainted arrangement between a company run by a South Florida man and 3 persons now members of the government in St. Lucia. One of them is Prime Minister Alan Chasney. The relationship dates back to 2009 when Chasney was tourism minister, and it is related to a contract to renovate the Hiranora International Airport for $157 million US. An Internal Justice Department memo, part of the inadvertent release of court filings, says St. Lucian authorities believe that the facts are indicative of a criminal arrangement between businessman Antonio Asenza and public officials in the government of St. Lucia regarding this public works project. No one has been charged with anything, and Asenza says he did nothing wrong. Back in 2009, Asenza decided to submit a bid to rebuild the airport. His company, Asphalt and Mining, was ranked last out of 3 bidders by the country's Port Authority. But the St. Lucian investigation found that Guy Joseph, the public works minister then, was not happy with the result. Joseph presented new details on the Asphalt and Mining plan to the Port Authority, according to the court filing. The Port Authority reopened the process and declared Asenza's company the winner.
They telephoned each other. The three of them telephoned the 2 shareholders of A&M 130 times. It further means that after the request or proposal was issued, the same 3 persons again telephoned the same 2 shareholders 79 times. 79. And folks, those are findings of the investigations. Hear this well. At 4.1, a Census 6 Matthews review of the bid. The government of St. Lucia press release omit to mention that on March 31st, a censor emailed the A&M draft bid to Matthews stating, "We need your thoughts ASAP." A&M on April 6 submitted their bid proposal to Matthews, Sean Matthews, the CEO of SLASPA, and Guy Joseph. Folks, you understand what is going on here? Guy Joseph, Alan Chastney, and Sean Matthews telephoned the shareholders of A&M 130 times. And then the shareholder of A&M is sending the document before it really goes in, a draft bid, to the very person, Sean Matthews, who would be instrumental in awarding the bid. Why on earth is Guy Joseph a minister, Alan Chastney a minister, and Sean Matthews calling the shareholders 130 times when they are not even supposed to be involved in what is going on? Why should a tender, or a tenderer rather, somebody involved in the bidding process, send a draft bid to the minister and to Sean Matthews? Why? Why? Why were the other bidders never receiving this kind of courtesy? Why is A&M alone? There were 3 bidders, 3 companies. Now, here are the results of the 3 companies. Put a page in for me, please. At 5:1, it says, the government press releases omit to mention that after July-August 2009, evaluation of the bids by SLASPA, IMTC won, you heard this? IMTC won, with A&M finishing in 3rd place. A&M, the results had A&M last. They came last. You heard this? They came last. But what happened? It goes on. The findings reflect interviews with Matthews and Emmanuel at SLASPA. Now Emmanuel is now CABSEC. Papa, and the plot thickens. Interviews with Matthews, Sean Matthews. Mary Paulius asked me to stop it because I'm talking about the honest minister. Okay, sorry Mary, I'll stop talking now. Good. Interviews with Matthews and Emmanuel at SLASPA. Their findings reflect on the Joseph Ascenza relationship. Joseph, Guy Joseph, Ascenza, A&M, and the constant pressure apparently imposed by Joseph on Matthews and others to promote the personal and corporate interests of Ascenza for the Uranora International Airport project. I didn't say it. Daniel Alexander, good night, my boy. You in New Jersey and you locked on. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. The findings reflect on the relationship between Guy Joseph and Ascenza and the constant pressure that he imposed on Sean Matthews and others to promote the personal and corporate interests of Ascenza for this project. Folks, I didn't say it. In 2013, Matthews and Emmanuel were asked, why is Ascenza so positioned? Emmanuel says, he's asking the same question. Matthews says, I have no knowledge of any money, agreement, or favors changing hands. Well, you may not have any knowledge. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. Good. He has no knowledge of money changing hands. But they ask themselves internally the same questions, and the words persistence and pressure were the words used to describe the impact on the situation. Folks, in 2013, May 2013, Matthews and Benny Manuel were asked, what was the reaction to the third place finish of A&M on the bid? Matthews says that the results were not what Guy Joseph expected. In his general demeanor, he does not want to approve anything that did not include A&M. You all heard this? Guy Joseph did not want to approve anything that did not include A&M. There was always an indication that as long as A&M, unless A&M, was part of it, he would not approve it. He would not approve it. There was always pressure on Matthews and Isaac Anthony, the chairman. You all heard this? There was an indication that as long as A&M is not involved, Guy would not approve it.
Now, what do we know? We know Shasney is not exactly the most honest person in the world. We also know Guy Joseph is not either. And we also know that when they do speak, people like Guy Joseph, they already admit that they falsified documents, that they've signed a Pajot letter. He said that in the House a couple of months ago, that it was his signature. There's my signature, is what he said on Rick Wayne's talk. And you're saying to yourself, well, this fits the MO. And then they say, well, you know, he goes on champagne show, champagne, yeah. And then Guy Joseph says, they spent $3 million on me and they couldn't get nothing. They got nothing. But here's the problem. Folks, first of all, the wheels of justice don't turn at the same speed that governance or the private sector even does. So, you heard about the MLAT, the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, in 2015 and 2017 and all of that. Well, when the government changes hands in the same way that the entire town and village council's investigation seems to have been shelved, we've gotten no updates from Shasney as Prime Minister since the actual town and village report, according to himself, implicates him for malfeasance and misuse of funds. So who's going to, in power, in government, continue processes that might lead to their own jailing or their own conviction or their own exposures for corruption? That's why when we keep chopping and changing governments after every 5 years, there are consequences for that. Not only lack of continuity in terms of projects, but in terms of the accountability that can come through the legal justice system, sometimes doesn't have enough time to go through. Look at all of the big hullabaloo Shasney boasted about giving the DPP 3 times the salary of what the DPP used to make before, giving extra people, and where are we with Operation Restore Confidence up to now? Now I say all of these things because by Guy's own admission, he's falsified documents. Shasney, after telling you that he's not a liar, has proven he literally has a distinction of a court saying that he would easily be found and to not be a credible witness. So these are people that are documented in terms of being, at the very least, dishonest. Right? No matter who you support, it's documented. That said, you come up to this story, and I'll tell you, I had issues with this story from the beginning because I knew who Rejok was from before, election cycles ago. I had been told, warned, and shown where things that he had said were accurate and where things that he had said were not accurate. And my problem is, as long as you can dabble in both with equal measure, then it means I have to be distrustful in equal measure. Now for me, I've told you before, tactically and on a personal level, it is much more comfortable for me to operate on where I think the truth is going to lead, where I follow the truth wherever it leads. I trust the process and I go with it because I never was growing up saying, oh, I want to be a journalist or I want to do a talk show or whatever. So I'm following a formulaic thing. And I also believe that I cannot outlie the UWP. I can't out-propaganda them, especially Shasney and them with the Republican machinery and people from Cambridge Analytica and Emma Data and the Republican think tanks. These are billionaire corporate interests coming up against me. So the only advantage I have is truth. But what do you do when you are trying to get truth or discern truth when it comes from people that are constantly lying and giving misinformation?
In a recently published blog post by an individual named Kenneth Rejock, allegations were made against local police officers, a man named Peter Leroy John, and government ministers, including the Prime Minister, implicating them in acts of fraud and even murder. As the post makes the rounds on social media, the government of St. Lucia has now refuted these claims.
The Office of the Prime Minister states categorically that there is no truth to any of these accusations concerning the government, and the Prime Minister has no knowledge or any connections to the gentleman in question. Equally, Minister for Economic Development, Honorable Guy Joseph, has no connections or knowledge of the referenced gentleman. This blog brings to mind public statements by a former Prime Minister in relation to the impacts report, including unsubstantiated allegations against lead members of the police force, politicians, and business people.
According to MacDonald, the blog repeats unsubstantiated claims made by the previous Kenny Anthony-led administration regarding Minister Guy Joseph and Prime Minister Alan Shastney.
As for Dr. Anthony himself, the blogger ties to an investigation of Honorable Guy Joseph, which we know was spearheaded by the former administration, kept a secret from the people of St. Lucia, and cost the taxpayers of this country millions of dollars. Contrary to what has been said, this was not a U.S. government investigation.
MacDonald says the blog post seems to be politically motivated, stating that it continues to cite previous SLP allegations. Now, she says, action will be taken.
There are other serious allegations in the blog that remind of the St. Lucia Labour Party campaign against a former Castries Central MP, which was a UWP election candidate in 2006. This is all a highly suspicious coincidence. The blog is obviously politically motivated and meant to impact negatively on the reputation of St. Lucia. On several occasions, the opposition has had no qualms in making statements overseas which may do harm to St. Lucia's image. Case in point, recent statements by Castries South MP in Dominica that foreign mercenaries based in St. Lucia were behind unrest experienced in that island. The referenced blog is being investigated by local and overseas authorities. Facebook has also been notified about this terrible abuse of its services.
As St. Lucia gears up for a general election, MacDonald suggests that the blog post is being used as a, quote, election weapon. Various forms of media, particularly talk shows, have been used to launch attacks at opposing political parties.
Now, as we said in the beginning, or I said in the beginning, good lies have truth mixed in with them, and you have to decipher. It's like trying to unscramble an egg sometimes. And then they tell you trust your instincts when there are people who are professionally qualified to manipulate just that, your instincts for their benefit. So for example, Nicole MacDonald has about as much credibility as a cow telling you not to eat grass, right? She has been caught lying so many times, and also has been made a fool of by Shastney and other lies which she tried to cover up, which then turned out to be true so many times that it's not even just a mop bucket she has to have. She has her own sewage treatment plant by now. That said, you then have to turn around and you have to look and say, the Labour Party is being accused, because indeed the first story was very well written. But if you pass the language, it has a lot of sophistry in it. In other words, it doesn't say the police said, it said the police imagined so and so. And when you hear that, you're like, wait, at first it sounds good because it fits a narrative that you already believe with regards to Guy Joseph, Shastney, and others. One that has even been reinforced by their own admissions. But then you have people that will call and they point out, oh, but why they're not suing, and this, that, and the other. But then other countries have sued. Rejock has gone to jail. And by the way, I'm sorry, I have to say it. A guy's name is Rejock. Now, you know in St. Lucia what jocking means, of course. So when you hear a fella saying, after you jock, you go and you rejock, you say, And sorry, I just had to throw that in there because from the time I heard his name years ago, that's where I was. And like I said, I had been told and warned and also given information that Rijok was somebody who was loose and fast with the facts, while at the same time coming with other things that may be credible. But the problem that I have is, if I have somebody who's lying to me 50% of the time, which 50 is it? So generally, I try not to associate myself with liars. I mean, I can tell you that I am a good liar. I was one of the top 5 best liars in St. Lucia. And then I realized to live a life based on lies made no sense. What truth was there in that? I mean, I see others do it, but that's up to them. And for me, I thought the real challenge was in telling the truth. Now, in telling the truth, you have a lot of problems, especially in a small society. I lose friends or friend enemies or fake friends or whatever on the daily. And then you have people with different interests that because you are conflicting with their interests, then you have a problem. So I understand the path is lonely. That said, it's also a matter of personal truth. So along comes Shasney now on Sky FM, and as usual, Shasney now makes me even more suspicious because he implies that no matter what you hear to the caller, that no matter what you hear about the UWP, just go on faith. And remember, faith by definition requires no proof.
On Lucia's part, but on several governments' part to put a stop to what this guy is doing.
But this guy is being fed all this kind of thing by somebody in St. Lucia. Don't you think so?
Yes, and I kind of... go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yes, and I hope something is done to really stop him from doing this, you know, because it's you know.
Yeah, and this is why, you know, ma'am,
the things that he's writing, you can see all the things that he's writing about. You can see these are things that the opposition has spoken about and written about, you know, so you can see where he's coming from. And they chose just before elections for him to start
correct.
writing these things.
These things always.
So I hope something is done to stop him.
And you would hope, the Labour Party, who were the ones who actually had the investigation, to finally come out and tell the people of St. Lucia the truth. The fact is, they spent 4.5 years investigating several former ministers, me included, and found nothing. Zero. And yet they want to continue to cause people to believe that there was something. There is no investigations into any of these ministers by the US government or the UK government. So it's very, very sad, and that's why I'm saying to you, we must understand that there is going to be multitude of attempts to plant seeds of doubt in people's minds. And this is where our faith must come in, because if you have doubt, it's always okay to question things. But when you lose faith, then that's when you're in trouble. And that's what that's what's being attempted here, is to undermine people's faith in this government.
Now you see where I have a problem? Even, and I've learned this the hard way with Shasney and Guy, everything they do has an ulterior motive. And because I don't naturally think like that, I'm not naturally a suspicious person, because I have to follow the formula. Once Shasney said faith, I'm like, what? Who wants to have faith in politicians in this day and age? Faith, no proof, 4 years, you can't do nothing, 5 years, faith, man, have faith. So many things that have been proven true. And you see, 2 things. One, this narrative is full of Labour Party talking points. They're right. And again, a good lie has truth mixed in with it. So you don't know. The second article that was written by Rijok made me more suspicious, because it seemed almost like a reverse psychology thing to implicate the Labour Party. And here you have the UWP that is basically trying to marry it all to the Labour Party. Folks, for better or for worse, the Labour Party is tragically conventional. They have been boxed into a corner where they have to be so perfect. Philippe Pierre can't lie, but Shasney can lie every day, nothing for that. Labour Party MPs have to be better qualified. They have to be more vetted. They have to have all their ducks in a row. UWP can take anybody they want and put as a candidate, and nothing for that. And that's just the truth of it. Like I've said, and I've used this example before, and if you, UWP supporter or Labour Party supporter, no matter what, if what happened with Ubaldas had happened, while the Labour Party was in office. He would have had to resign. The Labour Party would have had to distance itself from him, and they would still pay a price at the polls. But under the UWP, he continued for 3 years. That's the point. There is a double standard. Now, sorry to say, but the Labour Party cannot have anything to do with this because they can take it as an insult. It's too nefarious, it's too sophisticated, it's too psychological, if you want to put it that way. And at the end of the day, never murder a man that's committing suicide. In other words, the UWP is doing so much legitimate bullshit that even if this were true, all it is just one more grain of sand on the beach. And it's also been proven that solutions don't necessarily put corruption as a major issue. Like I've said, is the problem corruption, or is it when corruption doesn't, when you're not involved in the corruption? You see people who are accountants, you see people who are doctors, lawyers, all these people, they see the degradation of social services, they see the degradation of healthcare, the increase in crime and so on. But they still vote for their pocket, their personal pocket, no matter what happens to the country, and they'll still stay in league with Chasney. And that's a fact. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, what exactly is going on with this whole Rejoc story? What is that? In fact, let's get from Rejoc, let's head a background, let's see how it ties together, let's see all of the implications, and let your mind wander, and then hear from Rejoc himself.
The fact that numerous media publications are reporting on St. Lucia's crimes against foreigners visiting that island on vacation should give second thoughts of ever investing their hard-earned money to purchase land there, since the properties offered to them are stolen and acquired by the sellers through forgery, embezzlement, intimidation, bullying, and death threats made to the actual owners. The British Foreign Office Travel Advisory on St. Lucia warns tourists that while most visits to the island are trouble-free, there have been incidents of crime, including murder, armed robbery, and sexual assault. Over the years, the stories of fraud being told in the United States, Canada, and the UK and the EU countries are very consistent with those of foreign being swindled by land thieves. Among one victim of such fraud was a daughter of a retired British intelligence officer. After numerous attempts to get the local police to investigate, arrest, and prosecute the land thieves who swindled his daughter, the former MI6 officer reached out to his counterparts in Canada and the United States, whose citizens had suffered the same fate, and formed an unofficial fact-finding team to investigate the criminals. 2 teams of 4 individuals each quietly arrived on island and set up shop to gather intelligence on how the criminals operate under the protection of the Royal St. Lucia Police and Security Forces, as well as government ministers. Implementing their highly sensitive electronic surveillance skills, the investigators uncovered very disturbing information, including the fact that the head of the government of St. Lucia was involved in protecting the criminals' fraudulent conduct. Within 30 days on the island, the investigation led directly to the notorious and unscrupulous Peter Leroy John of the village of Babonneau, one of the major land thieves and the criminal mastermind of St. Lucia. Mr. John, while projecting legitimate wealth, including showing off his nice home and maintaining an upscale lifestyle, in truth and in fact, is heavily involved in child pornography, gun running, sex and drug trafficking, land theft, and land sale scams. More importantly, Mr. John also traffics in counterfeit birth certificates, operating his own citizenship by investment program, selling on the black market to Venezuelans, South American drug trafficking kingpins, and probable Middle Eastern terrorists, all of whom can afford to pay his inflated prices. It should be duly noted that in all of Mr. John's land sales, all the individuals that he claims have sold the properties are either long since been deceased or absent from the island for decades. Many admit that they have never signed a deed to John. To successfully carry out his unchecked fraud, John has recruited officials at land records, birth records, and passport services, all of whom assist with his criminal mandate. During numerous telephone intercepts, Mr. John can be heard dropping the names of high-ranking police officials, 2 government ministers, and officials in the Prime Minister's office to his business associates. One government minister specifically mentioned by John is his collaborator and protector, Guy Joseph, a known fixer on the island who has been on U.S. Department of Justice radar for a number of FCPA violations in an ongoing investigation reportedly involving Antonio Asenza of Miami, according to the stories in the Miami Herald. Mr. John was also overheard mentioning the names of relatives who are lawyers and members of the St. Lucia judiciary, all of whom are complicit in his massive land theft scheme. John is also a known identity thief. He is believed to have used the identities of American and Canadian citizens to conduct illicit business, including credit card fraud. Most of the identities and financial information was obtained for him by resort hotel clerks when checking in tourists. In fact, in 2014, the government of St. Lucia, under Dr. Kenny Anthony, requested legal assistance from the United States regarding a criminal investigation into Guy Joseph's suspected bribery in the airport redevelopment project. Joseph was himself quoted as saying, "It's hard to be honest in St. Lucia." The online whistleblower Offshore Alert released documents which purportedly originated from the Attorney General's chambers in St. Lucia and directed to the United States government, requesting assistance with an alleged criminal investigation into American businessman Antonio Asenza and Guy Joseph. The investigators were also able to discover that Peter Leroy John and his criminal associates were responsible for the murder of British citizen and hotelier Oliver Gobat, while St. Lucia police continue to mislead the public by believing the murder to be a cold case. For this reason, or reasons unknown, the police never attempted to use electronic means to triangulate all cell phone number signals which registered in the cell towers in the vicinity the night Gobat was brutally murdered. Oliver Gobat, whose body was found in St. Lucia, may have been in money laundering schemes. It is very important to note that the Royal St. Lucia Police Force has been accused largely by prominent figures then in the opposition party, St. Lucia Labour Party, of keeping death lists and carrying out extrajudicial killings of suspected criminals in an attempt to make St. Lucia more attractive to tourists. Currently, security forces are sanctioned pursuant to the Leahy Law. By all accounts, St. Lucia Prime Minister Alan Chasney is linked to the level of crime and murder, which is the order of the day on the island. This same corrupt Prime Minister told his constituents in 2017 that there is no criminal investigations pending into the Economic Development Minister Guy Joseph. Chasney has been known to boast to uninformed St. Lucians that he is well connected to the United States Embassy in Bridgetown, Barbados, and has access to the U.S. Department of Justice as well as other government databases in order to access classified information. Mr. Chasney, as Prime Minister, can show the international community that he is serious about stopping the land thieves by simply ordering an effective audit into all land transactions involving Peter Leroy John and his associates from 1998 to the present. Mr. Chasney should also set up a due diligence system and with it check all applicants prior to the issuance of the CBI passports.
So this is a classic example of Gish Gallop. Something where you've just been bombarded with so many things. It's too sexy, it's too sensational. It's almost too good to be true if you're a detractor with regard to this government. And then you have to take a step back and you have to ask yourself, but hold on. Just from a basic question standpoint, St. Lucia have the most success. Right? Everybody watching everybody business. People don't just know who you're sleeping with. They know what positions. They know who is whose child father. They know everything that's going on. Right? There are no secrets, sadly, in St. Lucia. But things hardly ever reach court. That said, think about this. You have somebody who is involved in child pornography, drug trafficking, counterfeit money, CIP. He's involved with Venezuelans, in Middle Eastern terrorists, Oliver Gobat murder, money laundering. I mean, how does this person even get time to eat or sleep in that sense? It's so sensational, so convenient. The Labour Party would think that the UWP is basically trying to set them up with this fake story, because if you can prove that the Labour Party is behind one fake story, or you can get your electorate to believe that there's one fake story, then all the other claims and all the other true things are now negated. But then again, don't play with your own mind. Maybe it is just as it seems that some disgruntled Labour Party supporter anti-Shasney, anti-UWP person is reached out to Rejok and is working together with him and has this thing dripping in Labour Party venom because they want to see the back of Shasney like so many of us do. So where exactly does this go?
Are shocking allegations of systemic corruption in the public service of St. Lucia real, or are they just fabrications of a partisan smear campaign as the island thrashes in the grip of election fever? Financial crimes blogger and controversial figure Kenneth Rejok made a series of startling allegations last week, claiming that a St. Lucian man is at the center of a fraudulent scheme to sell stolen property to international buyers looking for a slice of paradise. Rejok claims that electronic surveillance by at least 8 members of various US, UK, and Canadian law enforcement agencies intercepted telephone conversations in which the man named a number of public officials at various government departments as assisting him in the enterprise, and that includes high-ranking police officers. The article also names Economic Development Minister Guy Joseph as part of the scheme and implies that Prime Minister Alan Shasney is complicit in the corruption. Days after the blog's publication, the Office of the Prime Minister of St. Lucia issued a statement calling the allegations outrageous and fake, asserting that neither Prime Minister Shasney nor Minister Joseph knows the man at the center of the allegations. The statement from the OPM also seeks to cast doubt on an as-yet unresolved allegation stemming from the involvement of the at-the-time Tourism Minister Alan Shasney and Infrastructure Minister Guy Joseph in the bidding process for a major infrastructural project.
In this latest blog, references are made to unsubstantiated allegations by the former Kenny Anthony administration involving Honorable Guy Joseph and Prime Minister Honorable Alan Shasney. As for Dr. Anthony himself, the blogger ties to an investigation of Honorable Guy Joseph, which we know was spearheaded by the former administration, kept a secret from the people of St. Lucia, and cost the taxpayers of this country millions of dollars. Contrary to what has been said, this was not a U.S. government investigation.
In 2017, Rejok, as well as Offshore Alert, an online publication that reports on filings for mutual legal assistance treaties and other aspects of financial legal filings, published a response from the U.S. Southern District Court of Florida to a request from St. Lucia under the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty between the two countries. The response reportedly designated an assistant U.S. attorney to act as a commissioner to collect evidence on St. Lucia's behalf. The court filing detailed a criminal investigation which was being conducted by St. Lucian authorities into the activities of Joseph and others in the tendering process for the Hewanora International Airport redevelopment project. However, by 2016, Joseph and Shasney were back in office, and when news of the probe came to light, Joseph and now Prime Minister Alan Shasney told local press that they had not found any of the documents relevant to the state investigation of their activities in government records. Neither the current nor the previous attorneys general have ever responded to press inquiries on the matter, and St. Lucia does not have the freedom of information laws that would compel the state to produce such documents. The commissioner named in the Southern District Court filings has also thus far declined, for obvious reasons, to respond to requests for information. In November of 2017, Prime Minister Shasney announced a fresh investigation into the purported criminal investigation of his cabinet minister, Guy Joseph. No details were given then on who the investigators would be or how the investigation would be shielded from the obvious conflict of interest. On Monday, we asked the Office of the Prime Minister several questions about that announced investigation, including for an update of its status over 3 years later. We are, as of press time today, still awaiting a response. Rejok, who dubs himself a banking lawyer turned career money launderer turned financial crime consultant, has been sued several times for libel and has had at least one judgment against him and settled another out of court. Here in the region, several Dominican figures have sued Rejok over his allegations about corrupt acts in that country.
When reached for comment, Rajok said that he counts a handful of lawsuits as a very good record given his decades of reporting on global financial crimes, and that he stands by his claims made about corruption in the St. Lucian Public Service that go all the way to the top of government.
Because it comes from investigators with years of proven track record that I have used in the past, who've been on the ground in St. Lucia, who've interviewed people, who have audio and videotapes, and they have evidence. What I've got are the facts, and frankly, I dare anybody to contest its truth.
Rajok further said that contrary to what is being implied by the government of St. Lucia, he has never spoken to any member of St. Lucia's main opposition, the St. Lucia Labour Party, or any such affiliated person. Rajok also called on Prime Minister Shastney to launch a deep audit into the country's land registry and the Department of Planning. Now, given government registry's well-known record-keeping struggles, that would indeed be a monumental task. The news desk has not yet been able to make contact with the resident of Babonneau named as the central figure in this alleged wide-ranging criminal scheme, but we will report his comments when we do.
Now, belly full, overloaded, with all sorts of permutations, thoughts, and feelings, depending on your political biases, whether founded or unfounded, you don't exactly know what to do with it. But then I want to bring you back to a primer, that there are people who, when they said Kenny Anthony had a mall in Trinidad and Philip Pierre had millions of dollars stashed away, that when it couldn't be proven, you know what they said? They said, oh, the Labour Party, and that still goes around, Labour Party guys just better at hiding it. Now, even if that were true, then that means that you endorse the corruption of those you support because you think the others are hiding it, even when you have proof in front of your face. But I say all of this because we have to resist the temptation to let our emotions and the fact that we are dealing with nefarious characters already take us overboard. You see, there's a saying, when something seems too good to be true, it often is. For me so far, anytime something seems to be too good to be true, it is a plain fact. But then you ask yourself questions. If Mr. Rajok is accusing Shastney of being, as a point, and it states in the first missive, that he is in fact guilty and in fact involved in everything from murder to money laundering and all the rest of that, then why would you urge or ask Shastney to perform an investigation? This could be one of 2 or 3 or 4 permutations. So like I said, it could be some disgruntled anti-Shastney, anti-UWP person that has used their resources to co-opt Rajok or work with Rajok or pay to have this hit piece put out. Or it could be fantastic misdirection. You ever heard of an October surprise? What is an October surprise? An October surprise in America, since election dates are set, right? An October surprise which comes in the month before or just a couple of weeks before an election, it's something that changes the game, like a game changer. So when John McCain thought that he could not win, and all the polls were showing that he was not going to win, he then decided to bring in Sarah Palin as a game changer. It worked against him in the end, right? Trump went and got COVID. Didn't work for him one way or the other, right? But the October surprise, a typical Republican tactic, is to throw in some element at the very last minute, months or weeks before elections, that throws off all the narratives. Now, what have we been successful at? All media, right? Even when it is the ministers themselves like Guy Joseph and them admitting falsifying documents and so on. What have we been successful at for the last 4 years? Showing and exposing the naked, aggressive, unashamed corruption of this government. So, these guys, in many ways, could well be looking, you say it's a conspiracy theory, but that's where we're at literally throwing out something from somebody who is of ill repute, taking all the Labour Party talking points and stitching them together, come and claim, oh, foul play, Labour Party, y'all are working with Rajok and y'all are this, that, and the other. And then in all of that, it is to delegitimize all of the other issues. You see what they said the last time? And So I've given you two ways to think of it. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. I will only tell you what I did. I stayed, I looked at it, I was resistant, I was reticent. I said, I'm not going to follow this because I want to see how it plays out. I know that they come for me over voice notes even when it's true and private. I know they come for me and arrest me even when they don't have a cause to. So it's not this, they would not want me to go and swim in that wonderful swimming pool of corruption and a sexy story. But the discipline again, follow the facts. I cannot be more UWP than the UWP. And who wants to win an election using the same kinds of corrupt, nefarious means that the UWP does, and then you get into office and you are the same as they were, or they are. So that said, folks, I looked, I tried to investigate. I'm not no investigative journalist, but I tried. And there's a picture I want to show, the first picture from the article that kind of struck me. So I'm asking myself, if Peter Leroy John is in Babono, how hard can he be to find? If they found him and they found this house, and this is Peter Leroy John's house and all the rest of that. And then I said to myself, but to me, I've seen that house before. To me, I know that house because I always remarked about it being a nice house in terms of the location and all the rest when I saw it. And I did work at St. Lucia Distillers, covering everywhere from Sarot, Bexor, Labe, all those places, all the way through to Babono, Bojis, Kabish, Gara, all of these places up to Cap Estate. So I mean, I know my way around. So I'm like, what this place, and let's come off of that for a second, let's come back to me. And I'm looking to see from a truth standpoint, you know, if this is the man's house, then hey, why is it no reporters have gone to go and interview the man? Why is it his name could be in the phone book? His name, he has family, he has friends. I mean, come on. So I went this morning to where I thought the house was, and I took a photo. And I want to show the first photo again, and then the second, every 5 seconds. So this is what is in the Rejock story. And let's show the other one. Same house. The same basic house, even some of the same pipes, same soil. Let's go back to the original one. Yeah, same architecture. As a matter of fact, let's go back to the other one. Even the same car. Can we zoom in on the second photo here? Even the same vehicle, right? Yeah, that's enough. So I'm saying, well, okay, there we go. And let's go back to the first one again, and then back to the second. Let's give it 5 seconds each, 5 seconds. Let's go to the second one now. Right. And here's where we're at. Folks, the sad reality is that even though we know all that this government has done, even though we know all that they're involved in, we have to stay the course and make sure that we pursue and vet, and the vigilance and the justice of it has to be in the truth. If we start lying, we are no different or no better than Chasney or Guy or Estefan or Fede or any of these people. That entire cabal cabinet, we have to prove ourselves better than them by how we conduct ourselves, and we fight a fair election even if they don't fight a fair election. I say all of that because, folks, neither of those, and let's show those photos again. 3 seconds each, let's just show them. That is not Peter Leroy John's house or whatever his name is. And show the other one again. That one and that one. It's the same house from the article, and show the other one. But that's not his house. It's not his house. So folks, and I urge the press, whether it is Choice, HTS, so on and so forth, try to convince the family. Mr. John is in St. Lucia, does live in Babono, lives in a much more modest home. Also, if they try to link him to Guy Joseph in terms of planning, when Mr. John worked at planning for a short stint, it was in the early 80s, because he's in his 60s. And sadly, Guy Joseph was still a bus driver, or not sadly, any which way you want to put it. But then you also have to double back. Why does Guy Joseph need any of these people? Guy Joseph has direct access to the Prime Minister and the highest lawmaking body in the country. Whether it is passports, which we get through Canada and through the security measures, whether it is for land, which Guy Joseph is the Minister for Housing, Shastri was the Prime Minister and can acquire land. In other words, why would they need this gentleman or his family? So my point is, folks, and I know it's a long walk to get to where we are, that we have to remain disciplined, and not because something sounds like. I don't have that luxury, and neither do you. The UWP is the one that is going to go to the polls and tell you that even though there's no factual evidence behind the march that the Labour Party had, even though they had an indoor youth rally at the same time, same timelines, right? That is what caused the spike. And even though there's no empirical evidence, that's what they go into the polls with. We cannot go like that. So my point to you is, Mr. John and your family, I do hope that you all do speak. But folks, we in terms of being led can also be misled. So in the same way I tell you to question everything I see, question everything Norbert says, question everything Shastri says, find your own truth in that sense, and don't let your instincts be manipulated. So, having said all of that, I invite you to still not believe me. But from what I can see, not only is the story itself bogus, but the people who have been implicated in an elaborate copy and paste, cut and put together. There are real names, there are real people. But the real story is what we still don't know, which is what the motive is. Because the Labour Party will be the first to tell you that right now, based on what this government is doing, they don't need to add any fake or make up anything in order to show exactly what this government is doing. They're doing it unashamedly. They're doing it open and bold-faced right now as we speak. It's just like Gale and the Villas and all the rest of that. So for me, folks, I don't know what you think, but I think that there are nefarious forces as we're in election time trying to literally vegle our minds, trying to literally use Cambridge Analytica tactics. As for you, I'll leave the rest to you. This is The Revolution. Stay tuned.
Apêcher maladie à tous les jours, pas jouer fait corona, point vaccin là. Apêcher maladie à tous les jours, pas jouer fait corona, point vaccin là. Apêcher maladie à tous les jours, pas jouer fait corona, point vaccin là.
Ça c'est la commission Haute Association médicale et dentale en cette liste.
Thanks for tuning in to your favorite content creator, UTV. To find out more, follow us on our social media platforms: YouTube UTV124, Facebook UTV124, Instagram UTV124, Twitch UTV124, TikTok UTV_124, and Flow TV channel 124. Remember, UTV, TV for you.
La vaccine COVID-19 cette lisi ekse pou moun ki an l'âge 18 l'année et moutan, moun ki ka travay an département santé ki wiskab, dokte, nos, polis, pompier, moun ki ni pisadou, kanser, batman chè, presha, l'oppression, epi moun ki an l'âge 65 l'année et moutan. Ou pani pou paye pou la vaccine, epi yo pa ka oblige ou point. Registration sa fait online an tout health center ek epi dokte privé. Vacciner pour ou, pour ça ou, et puis pour nous.
You're watching UTV, TV for you.
Thank you for staying with The Revolution. And just so it's said, folks, the house that I showed you is not Mr. John's house. It is owned by somebody named John, but not him. And like I said, he lives about a mile away in a much more modest home. But I've taken this as far as I can go without getting so mired in the weeds that the message that I'm trying to bring across is lost. And my point is, if you do not have enough reasons to make up your mind on the facts, then either which way is pointless. We have enough factual, and we will be delivering more factual stuff. So I'm not going to lose my credibility on bullshit that's convenient to the narrative that is already out there. And for the sake of the family who does own the house, I'm not going to put out their business any more than that. Already I know that they are upset because I went to take a picture of their home and they saw me taking a picture of their home. But that's the only way that I could corroborate so that I could show you any which way. Now we move on. Where do we go? Let's go through all of the backstory.
The SLP has expressed concern about pensioners' funds being put at risk.
The developers of Canada's famed Cabot Links in Nova Scotia joined the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Alan Chasney, alongside Invest St. Lucia and NIC in a groundbreaking ceremony to mark the beginning of a project which will see a new 18-hole golf course on island. The 18-hole golf course, designed by noted golf course architects Bill Corr and Ben Crenshaw, will be set on Point Hardy.
We have now learned that a multi-million-dollar foreign-owned golf course project to be located at Cap Estate is to be facilitated by funding from the NIC. We have had $11 million sourced from the NIC to facilitate the DSH investments, the payment of $100 million of government bonds last year, and now a $30 million to the Cabot Group from Canada for their proposed golf course project in St. Lucia.
This project, which will include a championship 18-hole golf course, as well as I think about 250 lots, is coming. And I just want you to know that the government of St. Lucia is not just saying in words our support, but putting those to action.
The Prime Minister does not seem to understand that foreign direct investment in a country means that a non-national or foreigner brings money into a country from overseas sources in order to invest in the country. Instead, for the Prime Minister, foreign direct investment means that he gives directly to foreigners our lands, our beaches, and now our money.
And I know that we're also looking at the possibility of getting at least a third and a fourth golf course in St. Lucia to really start making St. Lucia a golf course destination.
Lord, what have we done to ourselves, man? What have we done to ourselves?
On the surface, everything looks rosy, but underneath, there's a lot of people in Inverness that are not happy with the way they've been treated by Cabot. And you know, the powers that be in Inverness, you know, business is business, and that's all well and good, you know, but you got to be fair to the people that gave you the land. I've been a part of this community for many, many years, and I have seen how Ben and Cabot has not been fair. They came in, this town was desperate, and they made a deal with the town fathers. They were desperate. They were up against the wall. And Cabot with Mike Kaiser with the Chicago lawyers, they just completely took advantage of this town. And as far as that beach path that was promised, it's in a contract. You can look it up. I have a copy of it. And a secret deal was made. I don't know all the details, but a secret deal was made. And for 6 years, the secret deal was kept a secret from the people of Inverness. And when construction started, that's when people found out that there wasn't going to be a beach path. I just don't like to see people treated unfairly, especially people that are, you know, down and out economically. The IDA, which is the Inverness Development Association, you know, I'm a member of that. The IDA has been taken over by Cabot, so Cabot is essentially taken over the levers of that government. They gave the town. They gave him land worth millions of dollars. The province spent millions of dollars remediating that land, and they said here for $1, I think it was, And how do you show your gratitude? You have all of this great success, the town is hurting. They gave him land worth millions. Inverness should have an equity stake in that golf course. They should have a piece of it, and they didn't. Mike Heiser's a billionaire. And so that's all I have to say.
The monies held by the NIC are the pension funds of hard-working St. Lucians who are depending on this to survive during their retirement years.
So, Norbert tried his best last night to spin his way out, but the fact of the matter is that even the head of the NIC, Isaac Anthony himself, once a prospective candidate for Miku North under the United Workers' Party, he admitted that the Prime Minister is the one that told, Alan Michael Shastney as Prime Minister is the one that told Cabot to come to NIC to get the money in order to buy the land, knowing full well that the land was owned on receivership for Scotiabank, Bank of Nova Scotia, and that if these people who, all what they said they were, in Ben Cowan, Durr, Mike Kaiser, and billionaires out of Nova Scotia, Canada, then the question was, why couldn't they have just bought the land, period? And then listen to Matthew Mathre, who points out that it was the NIC itself wanted to buy the land, as Emma spoke about, having a land bank because of the huge development potential for the NIC for St. Lucians.
In his statement to the press, NIC Chairman Isaac Anthony indicated that the financial relationship between NIC and Cabot St. Lucia Inc. is like all others, quote, bound to a confidentiality clause, and accordingly, the corporation is not at liberty to disclose every single detail of the loan agreement, end quote. But our first question was, how was this financial relationship started in the first place?
So the question of the Cabot, in terms of how we got to find out about this, yeah, they did make an approach to us. But I will also say, in the interest of transparency, that I did find out about this, this prospective opportunity for NIC through a discussion that I would have had with the Minister responsible for Finance.
Minister of Finance, Prime Minister Alan Shastney. And this is not unusual, the NIC chairman adds.
And in fact, we do meet periodically because he's the minister responsible for the entity, where we discuss key developments, particularly strategic opportunities, and we discuss a range of issues, including development projects involving the government and potentially in the private sector. And it is in that discussion that this matter did come up.
The National Insurance Corporation received a letter from Cabot subsequently requesting that they partner on the project, Anthony continues. But sources close had indicated that the property has been in receivership for a number of years, and that Ben Cowan Dewar, Cabot's co-owner, has spent the last 3 trying to raise approximately $14 million US in order to purchase the land. And then the question, why didn't a Canadian billionaire engage Canadian banks operating on St. Lucia?
I think they were really trying to raise the funding through their financial institutions. But I'm sure you may be aware of the development as it relates to Canadian banks generally being particularly now risk averse, given some of the difficulties that they have had within not just St. Lucia but the wider Caribbean. And I think from that perspective that they did encounter some challenges actually getting. I mean, sure, the obvious one would have been to approach Scotiabank, for example. But obviously, as you know, Scotiabank essentially has really pulled out of the region. So clearly they would not have provided that support.
But due diligence on the NIC's part was executed, the chairman assures.
I mean, even under a worst case scenario, in fact, it might even put us in a very good position, because potentially we can get all this land. And NIC has actually had a policy of aggressively looking at and going out to see whether we can actually purchase lands in different areas once we believe that it has a potential value. And I mean, this is prime real estate property right up in the north of the island. I mean, clearly, you know, for me, And certainly from the perspective of the board and the investment committee, it made quite a lot of sense.
It was also disclosed that the NIC's first intention was to purchase the property.
We thought that it was the land that was available for sale, and we at the investment committee went to visit the land, and as soon as we saw it, we had the valuers. We said that's property we should get, but then we saw the valuation. It's considerably, the price you paid for this thing is considerably less than the valuation. But then we recognized that there was already a commitment, and I think the chairman did state that, but for the receivers to sell to Carbon Links. So the next best thing was for us to get a piece of the pie.
And that even involved a trip to Canada, says Deputy Chair Frank Myers.
Given the scale of it and the perceived potential benefits to St. Lucia, we didn't just accept the people involved, the parties involved for what they were. We actually traveled to Canada at our expense. And I say that deliberately because I know how that can be misinterpreted. We traveled at our expense to Canada to see the persons in their environment, to look at what they've done, so we can understand the potential transformation that could occur to an economy like St. Lucia from having such a facility there. In Nova Scotia, we saw how the second golf course that they had built had transformed what is essentially a backwards into a very vibrant community, a very strong economy, etc.
The proposed 50-room golf resort development has raised some viability concerns amid a decline in the popularity of the sport in both the US and the UK, coupled with the closure of a number of golf courses. In fact, a 2016 article in the Financial Times revealed that about 1 in 3 players in England gave up their club membership between 2000.
So Matthew Matherell lets the cat out of the bag, along with Isaac Anthony, telling you, first of all, Isaac Anthony says, the Prime Minister is the one that sent Cabot to NIC. Then he says, it might be good that if the project doesn't go through, or if it goes through, we get the land. But the truth was, according to Matthew Matherell, that the best thing that they were going to do was they're already getting the land under the value. So I want you to think about this, folks. 300 acres could hold about 1,600 10,000 square foot lots, 4-bedroom houses of people who would be paying into NIC, keeping it solvent and relevant and buoyant for the next 100 years. You could have had an integrated development with sustainable tourism of tourists coming to see the archaeological dig sites, just like they come to see the Peters and get the story of our forts like Fort Rodney and all the rest of that. You could have had campsites. You had a cacti thing that was the only part of St. Lucia that had it. You could have had little restaurants and bars. You could have had a small village. You could have had all of these different things, an integrated development. But instead, Alan Chasney told Isaac Anthony and the rest of the house slaves like Myers and them there to take what was a great opportunity for NIC and instead give it to Cabot and hear what he said, unsettle for a piece of the pie. So in other words, because the fix was already in, because Chasney already gave the directive, instead of the NIC pursuing its first option, which was to take the land for itself and develop it over time, sustainably, and making maybe $300–400 million off of that. Instead, they gave it to Cabot, gave the Cabot the money to buy it, and settle for a little piece of the pie, as Mr. Matherell, you just heard him say.
The National Insurance has a responsibility to invest the funds of the people of St. Lucia in a prudent manner. Now, persons before me, not here, but have spoken about the viability of a golf course. Now, when I went on the Cabot Link website and the Cabot St. Lucia website, they spoke about an 18-hole golf course. They also spoke about high-end villas ranging from $700,000 US to $10 million US. They also spoke about lots for sale, right? So they might be making the money. So you say in that particular case, the national insurance 30 million might not be lost. All I'm saying is, as well to you, as an institution who has, as part of its mission, transparency, that loan document in terms of what interest rate, how long, and
in other words, you're calling for that loan document to be made it transparent?
It's transparent. It's for us to see because because when you see a 40 million here, when you look at the damage there, the national insurance money should not be damaging. It's the people's money. You can't take the people's money and damage the people's assets because that's an asset for the people of St. Lucia.
So it's not that our national leadership is prostituting St. Lucia. It is that our national leadership is telling foreigners to come in, take our money, and we are paying to be raped. Now, you have land where we are denied access at all points immediately. They did not even have their own economic and environmental impact assessment done. They borrowed one from a long time ago which had not been updated. And immediately they started to scour and scar and deface the whole landscape of the lands. And we gave them the money, like Emma Hippolyte said, we gave them our assets to destroy our assets. And we have no shares in it. We don't know if any government ministers or their family have shares in it. We know all of the business lawyers and accountants and brokers and PR firms and so on that are already getting business from Cabot that are directly attached to the FFF. But no account for the displacement of fishers, that we would lose 5 beaches, right? That these lands were also used, according to the government itself, to smuggle in people through the back door. That Oliver Gobar's remains were found on land that does not even belong to Cabot, but they blocked off the road anyway. The land belongs to Mr. Tom Walcott, but they blocked off his own access to his own land. And the rest there, right now, anybody can bring in any amount of drugs, kill any amount of people, and we know nothing. And they'll say, well, we're getting jobs. But every single tractor operator that has been brought to St. Lucia has been Canadian. Nope. And then you hear that before they even have the rights to, they're already selling the land.
The St. Lucia National Trust is calling on local authorities to explain why lots available at the Cabot development are already being advertised for sale, when to their knowledge the master plan for the development is still yet to be approved. Jacques Wooding reports.
According to chairperson of the St. Lucia National Trust, Alison King, the trust was alarmed to find out that lots which fall within the Cabot development are already being advertised for reservation and sale. King says given that to the knowledge of the National Trust, discussions are still ongoing regarding the terms of the Cabot lease. It is very alarming to see that developers would continue to advance the development as if it was set in stone.
Sales are being made against a backdrop of no approval for a master plan. So we will, using whatever legal means we have at our disposal, challenge the DCA in terms of approvals that they've already given, and insist that due process be observed going forward.
Adding his voice to these concerns is professional architect, National Trust Councillor Sean Compton. Compton says his discussions with the representatives of Cabot have revealed that the project was approved under the use of an outdated environmental impact assessment, which was prepared prior to the specifications of a previous developer. He says this ought to be rectified before approval is given for the master plan of the development.
We have had, prior to this dialogue with the developer, we reached out to the developer ourselves, and since this week, I personally have actually been speaking with a representative of the developer, really to see how all of this, all the two hands can meet, and where we can preserve access for locals, where we can preserve livelihoods, and still have the development happen. What hasn't been mentioned here is that the developer has proceeded to date, Alison, next slide, has proceeded to date with clearing the land based on spurious approvals, but also an outdated environmental impact assessment. This was not an environmental impact assessment that was done specifically for this project. It was done for a previous project, and since then, different factors have emerged.
Compton says the National Trust is not anti-development, but instead the Trust is pro-sustainable development. He says many developers in past have taught St. Lucia an important lesson about the relationship between development and environmental degradation.
The master plan shown by Cabot St. Lucia has been heavily scrutinized, with many highlighting the expanse of the 18-hole golf course and resort. Conservationists are also worried about the location of the Cabot development to an Amerindian ecological site.
We are working with the developers to ensure that if there is this right there, this historical preservation of the cemetery or the burial ground, that it is protected, that no development is built upon it.
Stanislas contends that master plans are not often set in stone and are subject to change.
They come with a master plan, but when it is reviewed by the technical committee in the Ministry of Planning, it goes to the board of the DCA. Many times they have to tweak it and change it because it doesn't conform to the rules, the regulations of the planning unit or the planning laws of St. Lucia.
The minister remains resolute that officials will continue to engage all stakeholders at the various stages of the development.
Now remember, Cabot hasn't gotten approval yet, so there's no approved subdivision for Cabot. That doesn't exist. But yet still, on the Cabot website, we're seeing that land is for sale. And not only is land for sale, but in fact, it has already sold, according to what they say on the website, 22 lots, right? And 20 lots still to be sold, right? Now, if you go on that website, and you can see it is called featured listings, that part of that Cabot website, you will actually see the value of the properties that have not been sold. But we have not quite seen, there's only one instance where you're actually seeing the value of the sold properties. So what I've actually done is that I've actually gone through the entire list of Cabot properties. And in fact, there are about 44 identified properties. Now, maybe I should actually show you where those properties are at. And if you could just go to screen just for a moment, you should be familiar with that image right now. That is the 375-acre Cabot site. 317 acres is freehold. In other words, Cabot can own that outright. And we have about 58 acres of Queen's Chain, right? Now, you can, of course, the Queen's Chain is along the coast, and you can see very clearly how even along the coast, you're seeing how the the golf course goes right up to a lot of these areas. So within that plan, circled in red, right, is the phase 1 development. And in that phase 1, there are 44 lots, right, as well as the Cabot Golf Clubhouse, right? So that's in that red area there. The green areas that you can see, those are the fairways. Those are the courses, the holes rather, and there are 18 of them. They're all numbered there. I've also indicated on that plan where Cactus Valley is. I'm showing you where Donkey Beach is. The arrow is pointing it to you there. So for instance, you can see that in the case of Donkey Beach, you have a fairway going right up along Donkey Beach. So when we talk about access to the beach, you can understand that issue there. If you could perhaps take out the bar at the bottom so that we could see all those details. Great, thanks. And then you can also see where Secret Beach is. It's on the southern side there, where you see the arrow. We've also pointed out where Marjorie's Bar is currently located in Cabot's plan on Casabah Beach, as well as the Amerindian village site. Now, by that, you see that 44 lots there? Let's actually go and see now how that works out in terms of real estate. And I've gotten a schedule here, which we can actually show, I think, as well, for the benefit of persons who may be watching. But basically, the value, right, so this is worked out all the sold lots and the unsold lots. So the unsold lots are the values that we actually know the prices of. And we've actually worked out the rates per square foot. So in other words, lot 8 is actually selling at $313 per square foot. Lot 9 is selling at about $319 per square foot. Right? Lot 15 in the green, right? If you look at that column that says rate per square foot, PSF, that's $325 per square foot, because that lot is actually selling at 1.7 million US dollars, 4.59 million Eastern Caribbean dollars for just 14,108 square feet. Right, and we've done the calculations using this tabulation. So for every single of those unsold lots, right, all 20 of those unsold lots up to lot 43, right. So of the total active lots, which you can see right here, the average is $273 per square foot for about 6.3 acres of land. And using that, we have actually worked backwards to be able to figure out the rough estimate of the total sold lots. And based on what we have, it works out to be about $274 per square foot. So the grand total for just those 44 lots, the amount that Cabot stands to make is $174,825,000 for the sale of nearly 15 acres of land, just about 15 acres of land.
So you see what Cabot is making, or what Cabot has already made. You heard that Isaac Anthony did not want to disclose the terms, but now that they've been repaid, they put out a press release which is showing the terms, including the margin interest rate. But just imagine, these are supposed to be billionaires. Now, whether you want to take it as a Canadian billionaire or an American billionaire, we generally use the US, but no worries, because that's still more than double the EC dollar. But a billion is 1,000 million. How can Mike Kaiser have $1,000 million plus to be considered to be a billionaire? Not by our standards, he would have had to have $2.7 billion to be considered to be a billionaire by global standards. And yet, they themselves admitted that for 3 years, they could not raise 14 million US to buy the lands. 3 years, Cabot was trying to buy the lands and they couldn't raise the funding, so Chasney told them to take it from them. But the guy's a billionaire and he didn't need the money. That making sense to you, St. Lucia? And what's even worse, for all those who are going to the ballot box and saying, boy, Spider, let me evaluate Spider's performance. The largest single project in his constituency for the last 5 years while all he did was take care of himself, his jabal, and his kids, right? The fact of the matter is, Spider actually said he wasn't paying attention in cabinet while he gave away 5 beaches.
Spider, your theory here blatantly contradicts what is in writing. I do have both of the documents. Hold on, Spider. I have both of the documents. I showed them on TV last Thursday.
What documents?
There are documents, one from the Ministry, Department of Planning, recommending that one, no lease be granted of Secret Beach, and two, hold on, and two, that it be reserved for access by an enjoyment by all St. Lucia. And they said do not grant the lease. Right. And I have the cabinet conclusion that granted the lease for 75 years. How do you explain such a substantive departure?
A question, can I ask you a question of my own?
Yes.
Does the cabinet conclusion that you have indicate
not that I have, that's the cabinet conclusion.
No, I mean, mine doesn't have that. So I'm asking you if yours has a granting of the lease on any of the beaches that were mentioned.
I just told you, Spider. I just told you. And I will show it tonight again. I am telling you again, Spider. And I'm telling you without a doubt, without self-contradiction. And I bet my life on what I'm telling you. That the Department of Planning recommended to government that from 1657 B3, I think it is, known as Secret Beach, that a list thereon not be granted, that it be reserved for access and enjoyment by all St. Lucians. Thereafter, there is a conclusion where a list was granted of that very block and parcel number for 75 years.
Okay,
and
let me tell you as someone who sat in cabinet while the decision was taken, what the decision of cabinet was. That we renew the leases that already existed. We granted leases on Queen's Chain, but we did not agree to grant any lease on any of the beaches mentioned. And for that matter, I raised the issue of access, because I'm saying even if the beach is public and you do not have access to the beach, that is an issue. Okay, and I was told that there is pedestrian access according to the plans in planning, that there was a provision for pedestrian access to the beaches. I made a request, and it is a request because you cannot force the owner of the land to give you vehicular access when, according to the plans, it is pedestrian access. I am saying, I'm appealing to Cabot to be a good corporate citizen and grant us vehicular access.
Carbon coming without a cent. We lend them our money to buy land in our country. Now the government has to have been to carbon. Can you imagine how ironic it sounds? But go ahead.
Again?
I'm saying today Carbon came here and made balancing. We took the pensioners' money, we lent it to them, and I still lend it to them. They bought land in our country, and now as a government minister, we have to appeal to them.
Yes.
We have to appeal to them.
Because people like you and your minister of plan, you didn't ensure that we have vehicular access.
I did not ensure we have vehicular access. I would never let Carbon come in.
Now realizing that for us to get vehicular access.
That would never happen under me.
While that was going on, Richard, you were the minister of planning.
Spider, I abided by the recommendation. Spider, I am not a technocrat, you know. I am not a technocrat.
Neither am I, but when the technocrats tell me what the situation is, as someone who has the interest of the people, I ask for what I think you want. Because let me just say something to you, Richard. When I talk about access, I want to think of unfettered access. Now, access to Donkey Beach, for example, which I know very well, I'm from that area. Access to Donkey Beach is inaccessible to some people, like my grand aunt. If I drop her in Capacity for her to walk from there to Donkey Beach, that is inaccessible to her. That is why I'm making that appeal. And it is not a right, you know. I do have a right. It's not a right I have that it has to be given and so on. I'm making a request that we get vehicular access to Donkey Beach. I want to know I can drive my Samurai onto the beach like I used to before.
Spider, you see what you're saying and what the conclusion is saying. You are bringing an explanation in theory.
Richard, I do not have the conclusion in front of me, but I assure you, as soon as I leave this program,
I am going straight to the Cabinet Secretary for a copy of that conclusion, because I know what we agreed upon. A copy of that conclusion, and I am going from there to the Ministry of Planning and let them show me that block and passing number where that is. And if it is any of those beaches that you're talking about, Richard, on Monday I am going back to Cabinet and ensure that the wishes and desires of Cabinet and the decision of Cabinet is accurately represented on that conclusion. I will not argue with you that you do not have a conclusion. I'm telling you that decision was not taken by Cabinet.
You elect a man to represent your best interests. He's not paying attention in Cabinet. Says he has to go back to get the documents from planning. Says that he's making a request for vehicular access. That was months ago. Not only do we not have vehicular access, more destruction has happened. Destruction of the archaeological sites which were agreed to be preserved. The fellas literally are chucking pots, chucking bones and everything, exhuming bodies, parts and all kinds of things, and they're just chucking them on the side and tell the National Trust, come and take the Leicester, not even in the context of where it is. In the meantime, Marjorie represents us, because as of March 7, when they come and they say, when last y'all went by Marjorie's? Went by Marjorie's about 2 weeks ago, March 7th. Look at what's happening now.
I thought you'd be here by now. There's nothing but a rain, the footsteps on the ground. I'm listening to the sound. Isn't anyone try for me? Want somebody come take me home? It's a down cold night. Try to figure out this life. Won't you take me by the hand, take me somewhere new? I don't know who you are, but I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm looking for a place, searching for a face. Anybody here and know? Cause nothing's going right, and everything's a mess, and no one's like to be alone. Isn't anyone try for me? Won't somebody come take me home? It's a down cold night. I try to figure out take me somewhere new. I don't know who you are,
And sadly, what's happening to Marjorie is not happening to Marjorie alone. It's happening to all of us. The woman is being annexed off of her own land. We are being pushed out of our own land with impunity. And our elected officials are saying they'll ask for permission and still not getting it. Even from a law enforcement standpoint, there is no access. They're draining mangroves. They are actually quarrying. They're actually trying to break up stones and everything. All kinds of landscaping that's going on. And St. Lucia's not even getting the work. It's Canadians driving all the equipment. And then you turn around and you ask yourself, well, why is Norbert beating his ass talking about, show the document, how the NIC is part of Emma Hippolyte and them are the ones that said that they should be buying land. That's exactly the point. The NIC should have bought the land. And the NIC should have developed the land over time with the people, for the people. And the people would continue to pay into the NIC. But instead, it didn't buy the land. It loaned a Canadian billionaire $30 million that he could not raise over 3 years, bought land for $1.50 a square foot and is now selling it for over $300 a square foot. And what do we get out of that? Nothing. So while St. Lucians, they're catching their ass in the middle of COVID, Cabot made 50 million US, over 130 million EC dollars. And you know what our share in that is? Nothing.
Rather than helping the poor people of this country, they are taking hundreds of millions and give big contractors, and the poor people of this country are suffering. Look at the situation if Cabot links, folks. The government could have easily advertised, look, there is an opportunity for St. Lucians to participate in an investment. We want 10 men worth X amount to come together. We will finance the lands at Cap Estate. Cabot came here without a penny. We lend them 11 million US of pensioners' money. They did not need a deposit because the land was used as security against the loan. So anybody qualified for that loan as long as your business proposal was sound. Ou pa te brise l'argent, Cabot vin ici à même côté yo à King sans dessous. Et nous prêtons yo 11 millions de dollars américains pour acheter terre. Folks, you all will not believe this. And like I said, any broke person may have qualified for the loan if the business proposal was sound. And those are the people we call investors, you know. People that they don't have to deposit a penny to get our land. They get our land using our money. And y'all will not believe this, folks. Y'all will not believe this. Put up this screen, this thing for me, please. Scroll up, please. Let's see the article. Cabot St. Lucia tops $50 million in sales. Show us the date there, February 3rd, 2021. Cabot St. Lucia tops, and that's US, 50 million US dollars in sales. Huh? 50 million US dollars in sales. So folks, the guys came here, used our pensioners' money, and have already made in excess of 100 million EC dollars on our money, on our land. Yes, man. Yes. That is what we bargain for in a government. You know, that is what we bargain for as a government. Where does that money go to? Where does all that money go to? Do we as a people have a stake in that $100 million profit that they have already made?
Nope, we have nothing. All we have is destroyed land, the inability to have a sustainable tourism product in terms of the archaeological site. We've lost and are losing part of our history that Chasney doesn't value because he's a product of Canada. And in the meantime, we have house slave mentality people boasting because Chasney has failed so much with not even investors, but failed with all of his giving away our assets, that the one time somebody can repay a loan, all of a sudden they jump in. So what they do, they lower the bar. Our expectation, look at us in St. Lucia, a country that was doing so much more with so much less. Nobel laureates. We had people succeeding in all spheres all over the world. How many UE graduates being professors in universities around the world? Right? World recognition for so many things, including our World Heritage Site status. We are proud people. And look at us now. We used to be boasting about buildings that we had, about schools, about things that we developed as a people. And look at us now. Because somebody paid us back money that we gave them, even though they're supposed to be billionaires, they take $30 million from us. They are succeeding, and we are staying there in our squalor, thanks to this government, and we boast about that. I want to show the press release now. And the press release is, the funny thing, you find any coincidence that the press release is coming immediately after we all made noise about how Cabot made 50 million US or 131 million EC dollars? Show it. I won't read all of it. Simple. NIC, the same ones that said they could not disclose, Isaac Anthony. March 23rd, 2021, Castries St. Lucia, right? The NIC received EC 29.4 million from Cabot St. Lucia Inc. This amount represented the full repayment of the loan of 27 million and the interest accumulated to date of $2.4 million. The interest represents a 10% return over the 20 months since the disbursement of the loan, as compared to the return of 5% on the NIC's initial total investment portfolio for the same period. Now, I'll come off of that simply, and I'll send it to anybody that hasn't seen it, because I have the PDF, and many of you should have. But if you don't, I can always forward it to you. Yay! Land that y'all were going to buy for $27 million and make an estimated $300 million off of. You bought it for Cabot, and they paid you back a measly $2 million over that, while they themselves have already earned over $130 million. No, but yay!
Today, we woke up to yours truly with the morning edition of Keeping It Real, talking about Cabot. And if you haven't heard, Cabot, remember all the Roro, That Beach is Mine, Marjorie, Lands, National Trust, Tut Calte Roro. You remember that, don't you, folks? Of course you do. I know you do. Don't play with me. Remember the $30 million loan? Or the $10 million US dollar loan by the NIC, the National Insurance Corporation, to Cabot? Remember that? And all the brouhaha and the... Well, it was announced just recently that Cabot, folks, has paid off the loan. Yes! The same doom and gloomers out there with everything to say about Cabot and how we taking people's money, their pension money, and give to foreigner and all kind of baloney and nonsense. Nonsense. Bring it back up. You can see that there. But let's go down to the part, the next page that's highlighted. Scroll up a bit. Pension funds. Scroll up. Listen to this. Reaction to the Cabot St. Lucia development has been mixed among locals on the island, according to George Jr. That's Calix George Jr. If blah 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 blah. If you're driving me blind there, man. If go up, let's see if Cabot were to default on the loan payment, NIC, that's from the Prime Minister's page, the government would, NIC would own 360 acres. That's what was used as the security, the collateral. While the loan is secured, George Jr. described it as unprecedented for the country and called it strange that a company backed by a billionaire investor, Mike Kaiser, would require a loan in the first place. So what? Who cares? Who cares if he's a billionaire? Who cares if he's a millionaire? Who cares if he's a thousandaire? As long as he satisfies the requirements in the NIC Act for an investment by loan. Nonsense, man. It's time we stop this foolishness. The people of St. Lucia will teach you all these elections. Don't worry, you watch and see.
So I'll open up the lines now at 5727-588 or 484-7588 if you want to call via WhatsApp. And help me out with this one, folks. Do you know of any St. Lucians who have gotten loans anywhere near what was given to Cabot? 1. 2. How come we have no equity stake in all the millions of success that Cabot has gotten? How come we have no shares? And I also have another question while I wait your calls. I have an overlay I want to run and I want to ask the questions. Let's run that. I just wanted to ask the government, since they're now willing to talk about Cabot, with the huge amount of water that is going to be needed, and that's the water treatment area in Casabah, Cap Estate. The first question I have is, we know what Sandals has done in order for them to be able to water the golf course. But is Fresh Start now having to install, not these blue pipes, but are they having to install additional pipes, especially for Cabot? So even after Cabot has repaid, are the resources of the state still being used to facilitate Cabot the same way that they are being used to facilitate Tewa King? I mean, simple question. Tell me what's happening with the water, whether Fresh Start now has to add additional pipelines for Cabot, and then tell me what's going to happen with the water situation over at Cabot as well. So we can come off of that. It's 5727-588, sorry, and 484-7588. We have a call. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon, sir. Help me, help me. I want to jump with glee like Jukwa and all the rest of the UWP hacks like Champagne and them, Nobas.
There is no glee in this, Chris.
Why not?
Absolutely no glee.
Why not? Didn't we win Lotto?
Chris, the NIC came out with this press conference. Like this was, success, win-win.
It's not success? How is it not success?
Okay. Chris, first of all, let us revisit this thing. Chris, first of all, that loan to Cabot St. Lucia Inc. was illegal. Let us be clear on this.
Okay.
It was illegal.
Why?
The NIC Act states specifically the investments that pensioners' funds can be put to. It is clear. And the loan to Cabot Inc. doesn't fall anywhere within what the NIC Act specifies.
But
nowhere near.
But caller,
you showed a copy thing. Richard Frederick dealt with it.
Caller,
he showed the
no. But caller Norbert's rationalization last night was that the NIC could buy land.
Look. You see, that guy is a horse's rare.
But here's the funny thing.
I don't want to talk about
Here's the funny thing. The NIC could buy land, but the NIC didn't buy land. The NIC gave somebody money, a foreigner money, to buy land that they couldn't buy for 3 years.
Point. That is the point. That is the real issue there. Not the thing about this guy repaid the loan. Of course, he repaid it. We're talking about a Canadian billionaire who received $27 million of pensioner funds, which he was not entitled to according to the NIC Act, to purchase that land. According to the last report that I think you showed in some magazine or the other, the guy had already sold $50 million worth
U.S.
of that property, U.S.
Yes. Yep.
And that's not even close to 1/2 of the property.
Yep.
So he stands to make another hundreds of millions of dollars more.
You know what Calix George Jr.'s estimate, because I didn't put it in today, do you know what the estimate is for these people? Close to 1.3 billion EC dollars. 1.3 billion these people stand to make off of our land. We get nothing. Maybe the Prime Minister will have more rich golfing buddies like himself, of his same persuasion, same accent, the products of Canada. And all we've done is basically just lop off 360 acres of our country and tell somebody, hey, go and make money with it. All you get is yours.
But Chris, now that you mentioned the Prime Minister, Isaac Anthony, and Frank Myers must also answer questions related to the Prime Minister's involvement in all of this.
The prime real estate agent, you mean?
But initially, those guys were I'm saying, when questions were put to them, they were saying, oh, the Prime Minister had nothing to do with that, nothing to do with that. And then they held a press conference where they fielded questions from reporters. And I did a small piece on that on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I said their responses, and I quote, their responses to those questions exposed their knee-jerk reaction for what it was, a sham, untruths meant to conceal the recklessness of the NIC, the controlling nature of the Prime Minister, and the brainless behavior of his cabinet ministers. Here are 3 responses from the 3-member board panel to questions raised by reporters. And I'm quoting them. They did make an initial approach, but in the interest of transparency, I did find out about this through a discussion I had with the Minister for Finance.
Mm-hmm.
But you all were saying all along the Prime Minister had nothing to do with that. And again, I quote, before this, the NIC was steadfast in its declaration that the Prime Minister, Alan Chastney, had absolutely nothing to do with the investment, company's loan request, and the NIC's approval of it. And why was the Prime Minister, or why did the Prime Minister have to meet with Isaac Anthony when the last time I checked, Ms. Coincia Thomas was the Ministry of Finance's representative on the NIC board?
Yep.
So why meet with Isaac Anthony, the chairman, when you have a representative from your ministry, Ms. Coincia Thomas? You know, the other thing there, Chris, is quite apart from the access to the beach and all of that stuff, which will now be a major problem for us.
It already is, it is right now.
Right. You know, there is also, and quite apart from what is being done to Marjorie, there is also the matter of the wanton destruction of a place of cultural and historical significance to the people of St. Lucia by Cabot Inc.
Yep.
I mean, all of this stuff is playing into the mix that is Cabot Inc. And those guys are coming out there and putting out this silly press release as though it's a success story. Look, I almost puked.
It's a classic case. It's a classic case of anchoring. Taking success, taking failure, marketing it as success, hoping that by the time we're all done, it's simply tit for tat and not such a big deal. But what has happened there and still is happening is while Cabot is gaining, it is a direct correlation to our loss. We continue to lose every day with Cabot.
You know, Chris, finally, the directors of the NIC, as well as the Prime Minister, they still need to answer a set of questions, a bunch of questions related to that rotten deal. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, caller. We have a call on hold that's been on hold for a while. Good afternoon. Thank you for holding.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Chris.
Good afternoon, sir.
To your listeners. Chris, I will be very short because you see this gentleman there who just spoken to you?
Mm-hmm.
He is a man I can give all the listening ear I may have in me. And I think he has touches on a lot of issues that I will not even try to go there again.
Okay.
But what I would like to say, I'm from the Grosile constituency.
Mm-hmm.
And these things are happening in the constituency. Chris, I'm calling out Mr. Spider Monto. Mr. Spider, I want you to give me a call. My name is Mike Willie, Sleeping Serpent. I want to call Mr. Spider out and to explain to us those type of things that's happening. Chris, will you take a loan to any bank, $500, you must put $200 down.
Yep.
And you're telling me a man can get $30-something million to buy a property. Within a year, he paid it. And people like Juba and them both say, oh, and I has made profit $2 million. Where are we going with this? Mr. Spider, my call today is for you. I want you to address the people of the North where these atrocities are happening. And please, do not take me bad or wrong. I just need to hear from my district representative. I want him to tell me when he said that he was going to work to Cabot to ask or beg for a track. Has he written to them? Has he gotten this track? and what is happening. We need to hear from our district representative. Forget about Chasney. Forget about Guy. I need to hear Spider.
Well said,
Mr. Monto, please. That's a play to you. Mike Willie, Sleeping Serpent. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, caller. We have a call on hold. Good afternoon, caller.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to make a contribution to your program.
Yes, go ahead.
What I want to say is that if the taxpayers of NIC should put this administration back, I'm saying to them, and after all what has happened, to sell the land, DSH, but the amount of money these people are making on us as taxpayers and contributing to NIC will be on to us, and we're going to be worse than Haiti, as we always say in the plain voodoo and things like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. We have another call on hold. Okay, we'll take one more call before we wrap up, but you know the sad reality, the sad part about all of this is for me, the part that really hurts is to see people make fools of themselves, boasting about what is essentially a rescued failure and continues to be a failure in terms of what we did with Cabot. Good afternoon, caller.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I want to tackle on the NIC issue.
Go ahead.
When somebody falls sick, you get a medical certificate from a doctor, your physician, and the physician gives you 5 days. If they know better, they give you 5 days. You submit that to your place of work, and it's forwarded to NIC. For remittance of payment from NIC, NIC gives 3 days from 5 days. Listen carefully, 3 days. You get paid for 2 days. I'm here to accept what's the rationale behind that, keeping 3 days behind or taking 3 days finish for 2 days. When you contribute to NIC all for every month, every fortnight, whatever it is. To me, that's robbery. I have been asking for NIC PR to come out there and explain to the public at large why they're keeping 3 days, for what? Imagine that 5 days, they keep 3 days, they pay for 2 days. Secondly, NIC takes person's money, the low man and the low grade, maybe for CCC, you name it. They pay the NIC also. They build that money, they have a capital, they invest in property. And the land, if you go to purchase land, NIC just apply online. And they learn a huge size of loans. Nothing small, great to say 5,000 square feet or 10 or 6 feet. It's all 15 up. The land is at $25 square foot per head. When you apply it online, they have to call for an interview. It's a whole rigmarole. But yet, the land that belongs to St. Lucians are given to foreigners. How can the poor person tend to build something to claim part of St. Lucia and feel connected to St. Lucia? Yes, you're born here, but you want to build something to remain here, to remain, when you retire, to relax yourself. As long as it is, you don't have that luxury. Don't have that luxury. When I understood that that company paid back NIC that money, and that small little allowance they put aside, make it look so big, like some host for saying, oh, they make profit. What profit? $2 million is not profit after millions of what they have. They resolve the balance for themselves. What is going to happen in this country? I don't understand. It's a mess. It's a mess.
It's a mess.
I want NIC to come out in media, the PRO, and to say exactly what's really happening. Be honest with the public. In fact, my opinion is all those serving on the board directors will resign. After that, there's much cover-up. Too much playing ball. It's like you put today, play a ball. Support me. I come proposal, say yes. Say yes, say yes, and that's it. The eyes have it. It is time some shall speak out on these issues, and Dogon Party has looked forward to compatible of what really is in it for you, for us, on the whole.
Agreed.
You have always look right now. They have the city go the whole one man owning everywhere. It's like a little mafia all around St. Lucia. A little this all around St. Lucia.
I'm happy you noticed that too. I'm happy. I've noticed it. I've noticed it.
You go to the bank to get property. You they ask you what you must deposit so amount. You don't have it. That's it. Or remortgage your house, or talk to some family members. They want to hold the house.
Yep.
Hustle. And persons, look, the person, now, something else that's wrong also. Persons who already serve government have worked in for years, draw the big gratuity, come back in the service. I mean, come on, after all, man. This friend who just left school, A-level school, or whatever, do college, or other courses, how can they get a job here? They have to migrate.
That's the problem.
They have to migrate.
It's a huge problem. You see the cabinet secretary, he retired, they bring him back in because, hey,
But there you are.
he's willing to do it.
There you are. I mean, you get up gratuity already, big money, you get a pension, big money. Live for those who just complete school and want to make something a headway, and they qualified.
Agreed.
Therefore, they're going to say backward, we can't go forward. We can't go forward. Can't go forward.
Agreed, caller.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, folks, I'm out of time, but I wanted to answer a question that keeps coming up from a lot of the UWP hacks. You see, one of the big problems they have is they tell them to come onto the Facebook and onto the different threads and just cause problems or just raise the usual stupid talking points that have no merit. But they always come and they say, oh, you're doing that because you want your job or this, that, and the other. To be honest with you folks, if I want to sell out, I told you I was offered a bribe just about what? Is it 4 or 5 months ago? That from my estimation was somewhere around $80,000. But we'll leave that alone. Folks, if I were taking the corrupt path, I would have been a millionaire, multi-millionaire many times over. I'd have probably been able to get land from NIC myself. All right? That's it. That's it. Folks, I want this election to come because I'm fed up. If Shasney wins, as long as it's a free and fair election, so be it. If the Labour Party wins, so be it. Personally, I don't think the election is going to solve all of the real deep issues that we have that will take not only constitutional reform, but solutions to remember who they are and to make sure that certain things can never happen again. But I will tell you, for those who wonder, what is Christopher looking to do? Why he wants elections? You know why? Because I made a promise to a friend, and I cannot keep it yet. And I am determined that the day after elections, the sooner it comes, the better. Then I can move on to a project which is long overdue. A project where I am to do a documentary of a great solution. So for me, all those who believe, God, Saddam just doing that, Saddam could get a big job, so be it. It's up to you. You have to project your own, the people that you support and the ethics that you lack onto me, so be it. But for me, I'm tired of Shasney. I'm tired of the cabinet. I'm tired of hearing Guy's voice. I'm tired of Nancy's lies. I'm tired of Mary's patent stupidity. I'm tired of all of it. It's like you're watching the Beverly Hillbillies. After a while, it's not funny anymore. It's just sad. I want to move on. But I also will make the effort because I want to move forward. So for me, I'll make this sacrifice now. But make sure you know it. There's other things that I do have to do that are equally important.
On the 23rd of March 2018, music producer, artiste, and icon in his own right, Francis Lebo de Lima, passed away. Lebo, as he was affectionately known, devoted his life to the growth of St. Lucia's music industry, assisting many artists to get their music recorded and produced. In 2017, I reached out to Lebo, who was battling cancer and receiving chemotherapy in the United States of America. It was to lend his voice to a talent that would be in tribute to those battling cancer. Although he was battling cancer, he saw the merit in what talent coordinator Trevor King and contestant Chancey Fontenelle were trying to highlight. He recorded a video from his studio in the US during a very challenging time for him. He spoke about the experience of battling cancer and the lessons learned. Tonight, we revisit Francis Lebo de Lima in his own words and hear from his wife for the first time. In June 2017, almost 1 year after receiving a cancer diagnosis, Francis Lebo de Lima spoke about his battle against cancer and where he found the strength to embark on the fight. He lost that fight in 2018, but how he fought that battle was an inspiration to many. Lebo chronicled his journey in a video message that was used for a tribute to warriors battling cancer in a talent piece by the winner of the 2017 National Carnival Queen Show. Excerpts of the video were used that night. Lebo spoke about getting the life-changing diagnosis and how he readied himself psychologically for cancer.
At the time, I was not sure how to process it, but my immediate reaction was, okay, well, it is what it is. Where do we go from here? What do we do? My doctor's recommendation was to undergo immediate surgery. And despite the conflicting opinions and suggestions from family members and close friends, I made the decision to do surgery. But it was not until waking up from surgery that I and my doctor realized just how serious my condition was. The cancer had already spread from my stomach into my intestines and possibly other parts of the body. The best option at that point, according to my doctors, the surgeon and oncologist, was to pursue palliative chemotherapy treatment. I was up for the fight of my life. I'm not sure if it had something to do with how my mother raised me or just my overall philosophic outlook on life, but I never entertained any thoughts of self-pity or asked myself, why me? Why not me? I believe that there is divine purpose in all that God allows us to go through, and I was determined to learn the lessons, to recognize the opportunities, and to count my blessings, as obscure as they may be, as I was about to embark on this new journey. With every challenge that I had to face, I found myself digging deeper and deeper into the depths of my inner being and persistently seeking spiritual guidance and clarity on everything, in all aspects of my life.
Lebo displayed great inner strength during his cancer journey. He made sure to leave daily words of encouragement to friends and fans via his social media pages. And in his personal life, he was even more careful to wrap his family in a blanket of love and support, knowing what they would go through when he passed. His wife, Amanda Dilemma, says he departed this life only after giving comfort to her and their only daughter. She marveled at how he was able to give his family peace even while he was suffering.
When he was on his last couple of days, he was able to tell me that it will be okay. And I'm thinking, how could he be telling me that it's going to be okay when he's passing away? And you could see it in his expression, you are going to be fine. Everything will be fine. Take care of lyrics, you know? And he gave me that inner strength.
This was Lebo, in his own words, less than a year before his death. He urged empathy and support for those who were not just battling cancer, but those who had suffered great losses.
The separation from my family and loved ones, the time spent in contemplative thought, all this continues to fuel my spiritual growth and has led me to become more sympathetic, more compassionate, more understanding of the suffering so many others whose pain, suffering and losses are relatively greater than mine. Indeed, who feels it knows it. I am grateful. So, no matter how broken down you may become, regardless of how difficult the challenges you may face, rise, breathe, and walk it out. Where there is life, there is hope.
Lebo's family has extended immense gratitude for the continued outpouring of support for the family on this, the anniversary of his passing. For many years to come, St. Lucian Society will speak about the legacy of Lebo's music, his Heights music productions, his pioneering musical sounds, and his philanthropy towards up-and-coming artists. But his greatest legacy, as told by him, is his daughter, Lyric Dilemma, a young woman who is comforted by the strength of her father and the love that reverberates around her from so many who loved him.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the host, co-host, guest, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.